Imagine spending 4 years and I mean thousands of dollars just studying the complex physics of a bicycle.
Right, like memorizing all the exact gear ratios.
Yeah, exactly. You write these 20-page essays on the aerodynamics of the spokes, and you easily pass the final written exam, but you are never actually allowed to pedal one.
Oh man, and then the day after graduation, you're expected to just jump on a bike and navigate through rush hour traffic.
It's terrifying, but that is the exact reality for millions of graduates entering the workforce today. You sit down at your new desk, you look at your email client, and you just have that sinking realization that your college theory, well, it didn't prepare you for the actual working world at all.
No, it really doesn't. And that gap between academic theory and practical application, I mean, it's jarring no matter where you live. We see it across the globe, honestly.
Right.
But in certain economies, it goes far beyond just a personal feeling of imposter syndrome.
Right.
It actually becomes this massive systemic bottleneck for the entire country's growth.
Yeah, and to understand the sheer scale of that bottleneck, we really have to look at India. The numbers we pulled for today's deep dive are, frankly, they're just staggering.
They really are.
Like, the Indian education system is currently producing about 3.5 core, so that's 35 million college students at any given time. And they're pouring 1.5 core, or 15 million, fresh graduates into the job market every single year.
But the terrifying metric from corporate recruiters, the one that really stands out, is that only 25% of those graduates are actually employable.
Wow, only 25%?
Yeah, just 25%. The vast majority are completely lacking basic practical skills. I mean, they have zero real-world market exposure.
Right, because their resumes are basically identical to millions of others,
Yes.
just padded with theoretical academic assignments instead of, like, verifiable portfolios.
Exactly. The underlying issue is that the university syllabus is almost always fundamentally outdated by the time it actually gets printed.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So students are effectively being trained to be these passive job seekers in an era where artificial intelligence and automation are just rapidly changing the very definition of an entry-level job.
Oh, absolutely.
They lack that resilience and that quiet confidence that really only comes from actual market exposure, from failing, fixing a problem, and actually delivering a result to a real human being.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because our mission for today's deep dive is exploring a highly structured and honestly almost surprisingly practical solution to this exact crisis.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating approach.
Well, we are going to examine a system called the Collegian Web Developer Transition Program, or CWDTP. And the goal here is, well, it's fascinating. It's not taking these directionless students and trying to turn them into like lifelong hardcore software engineers.
Right, not at all.
It actually uses a 45-day AI-powered boot camp to build confident, industry-ready professionals, regardless of what career they ultimately choose.
And that distinction, I think, is the lens through which we really need to view all the source material today. I'm not looking at this simply as, an educational tech tool or just another coding boot camp.
Yeah, it's much more than that.
What we're really analyzing is this brilliantly designed psychological bridge. It's built to safely transition a young adult from this sort of spoon-fed safety of academia straight into the results-driven and often pretty brutal reality of the corporate world.
But to really get why this bridge is built the way it is, I mean, we have to look at the architect behind it. The creator of the program, Abhay Sonak, he has this origin story that perfectly explains this intense focus on practical hustle.
Oh, yeah. He definitely didn't come from a comfortable theoretical background.
Not even a little bit.
Far from it. I mean, his early life is the absolute antithesis of modern, sheltered education. He started his career at age 18 working as a manual typist.
And he was earning barely anything, right?
Yeah. Just 450 rupees a month, which even back then was a tiny fraction of a living wage. And every single day, he was cycling 15 kilometers to his job in the MIDC area, which is this massive industrial hub in Nagpur.
Wow. 15 kilometers every single day.
Yeah. And while working this grueling job, he was also pursuing his BCom, his Bachelor of Commerce degree, as an external student.
Meaning he didn't have the luxury of a safety net at all. He wasn't, sitting in a dorm room just casually studying for midterms.
No, he was working to survive. And the pressure was immense because, unlike full-time university students, failing a single subject as an external student would cost him an entire academic year.
Oh, that is brutal.
But he cleared all 3 years without a single interruption. And then, over the next 4 decades, he evolved from that typist role, moving through corporate IT, leading infrastructure at major companies like Club Mahindra, and eventually pivoting into digital marketing and mentorship.
That is quite the trajectory.
It really is. And that 40-year journey ingrained this core philosophy in him, which is that real-world application, actually doing the work, is the only bridge to success.
Which, ironically, actually leads to the wildest part of their entire curriculum. I mean, they have this massive disclaimer right up front. The CWDTP explicitly tells incoming students that this is not a career in web development.
Right.
And they say that earning money from the websites they build is merely a byproduct.
Yeah, a byproduct.
Wait, so they're explicitly telling students not to become web developers. I mean, isn't that totally counterintuitive? You're signing up and paying for a web development program.
It sounds like a complete paradox on paper, I know.
Huh.
But it's actually a masterclass in expectation management.
So it's kind of like reading a book about swimming versus actually being thrown into the shallow end of a real pool. You're practicing the mechanics in a real environment, but it's safe. It's basically a flight simulator with all the safety guards left on.
That is a great way to visualize it.
You get to feel the turbulence of dealing with a difficult client. You know, pitching a service and meeting a deadline. But you aren't going to crash a real 747. You're just practicing the mechanics of flying.
Exactly. And the program's own literature uses a very similar, really relatable concept. They refer to the title of web developer merely as the vehicle, not the actual destination.
Okay, I like that.
They compare it to learning how to drive using a scooter.
Mm.
The scooter isn't your career. I mean, your life goal isn't to become a professional scooter driver.
Right, hopefully not.
The goal is just gaining the confidence to navigate the roads. You ride the scooter until you graduate, and by the time you trade it in for a car, or in this case, a corporate job, you already understand traffic, you understand navigation, and you understand all those unwritten rules of the road.
You know, choosing web development as the scooter makes a lot of sense when you think about it. It's universally understood. Everyone knows businesses need websites.
Oh, absolutely.
And crucially, it requires absolutely no actual coding background. The program uses no-code AI platforms and prompt engineering. It's just like the perfect low-barrier practice dummy.
It really is. It provides this immediate sandbox to teach all the invisible skills of business.
Yeah.
Like how to package an offer, how to price your time, how to actually deliver on a strict deadline, and how to handle client revisions without, taking it personally.
But wait, if the whole point is that these kids are using a scooter to practice, they still need a road to drive on, right?
Yeah, they do.
They need actual clients. And who on earth is trusting a 19-year-old with zero corporate experience to build their business website?
Well, that brings us to the specific target market the program taps into. And the data here reveals this massive, almost invisible economy.
Yeah, the numbers and the sources are just mind-blowing. Like, out of 6.8 crore micro, small, and medium enterprises, or MSMEs, in India, so that's 68 million small businesses.
Right.
An estimated 4.6 crore, so 46 million of them, do not have a website at all. They are entirely offline or relying solely on just, like, a personal WhatsApp number.
And what's fascinating here is why that staggering gap exists. I mean, you have tens of millions of small businesses completely disconnected from the digital economy.
Why is that?
Well, the research points to three primary pain points for these business owners. First is high cost.
Right.
They just assume a website is going to require some massive agency retainer.
Sure, yeah.
Second is a perceived lack of necessity. They think local word of mouth is enough. And third is tech anxiety. They are absolutely terrified they won't be able to update their own menu or their operating hours without hiring a developer every single time.
And this is where the CWDTP ecosystem steps in to create this perfect win-win. The students offer these business owners a one-page, mobile-first website for a flat, all-inclusive fee of just 4,999 rupees.
Which is incredibly accessible.
For context, yeah, that's super accessible for a small local business. And that fee includes a .in domain name, web hosting for a year, and SSL security. You know, that little padlock icon in your browser that proves a site is safe.
All for basically 5,000 rupees.
Yeah. And the student is taught to develop this in just 3 to 3.5 active hours of work spread across 3 days.
Exactly.
But, okay, I have to challenge this a bit. In 2026, a one-page website sounds almost like a scam, or at least hopelessly outdated. I mean, my local neighborhood coffee shop has a 5-page site with a loyalty portal and an interactive menu.
Right.
Why would any business owner, even a really small one, pay 5,000 rupees for a single page.
So if we connect this back to our earlier analogy, it actually explains the logic perfectly. The program trains the students to explain to clients that a one-page website is the scooter for city commutes, whereas a multi-page site is a heavy-duty truck for moving houses.
Oh, that's clever.
Yeah. These specific MSMEs, like a local hardware store, a freelance accountant, maybe a boutique bakery, they do not need heavy software applications or massive e-commerce portals. They just need a digital brochure.
Like something that loads instantly when a customer clicks a link in a WhatsApp chat?
Precisely. Because the data shows that 80% of their local customers are browsing on mobile phones anyway.
Right.
On a smartphone, scrolling down one long, beautifully designed page is totally natural. Whereas trying to click through tiny hamburger menus to find 5 different subpages is just tedious.
It really is.
A one-page site is lightning fast. It's mobile first. And because it's built with no-code AI tools, the business owner can easily swap out a photo or change a price later without any tech anxiety.
That makes total sense.
It surgically solves all 3 pain points: cost, necessity, and fear, while giving the student a completely low-stakes environment to deliver tangible value.
Okay, so we know the why and the who. But the actual mechanics of this transition are what I find most compelling. Like, how does a directionless 19-year-old student actually become a confident consultant delivering digital assets in just a month and a half?
That is where the architecture of the Fum 5-day sprint really comes into play. It is intensely structured.
Yeah.
They don't just hand the students a login to a website builder and wish them luck. They provide a rigid, daily operational blueprint.
Yeah, the roadmap they use, specifically the Vivon Shervanch roadmap detailed in our sources, it is relentless. Like, day 0 is pure onboarding. But by day 1, they're already using what the program calls an ignition prompt to deploy their first live website.
And that ignition prompt is a great example of practical AI application. The student isn't just staring at a blank screen wondering what to type.
Right, the blank page syndrome.
Exactly. They're given a highly engineered prompt structure. They feed the AI specific parameters, like the client's industry, the local market nuances, and the primary call to action.
And the AI just does the heavy lifting.
Yeah, the AI generates the high conversion copy and the wireframe in seconds, which the student then implements.
Which is wild. And by day 7, so end of week 1, the student officially launches their business. And they aren't starting from scratch either. They are handed ready-made assets.
They have everything they need to look legitimate.
Yeah, they get a professional agency website for themselves, a digital business card, and even pre-designed social media posts. So to the outside world, they look established immediately.
And that speed to market is a very deliberate psychological tactic. It prevents analysis paralysis.
Oh, for sure.
Because once they have that professional facade, phases 2 and 3, the build and the growth phases, they shift from learning into just relentless daily execution.
Right.
Over weeks 2 and 3, they are required to build one demo site every single day. This builds their portfolio and their raw speed.
The daily hustle required is just wild to me. I mean, along with a daily demo site, they are creating 3 Build My Brand social posts a day.
It's a lot of work.
Plus, they have a strict quota. They must send out exactly 15 to 25 direct messages a week to leads and what the program calls pathfinders, which are basically local well-wishers, mentors, or family friends who can provide referrals.
But the beauty of that structure is that it completely removes the guesswork. A student doesn't wake up wondering what they should do today. They just look at the calendar and execute.
Yeah.
They build their demo site, schedule their posts, and send their DMs.
And here's where it gets really interesting for me. When I was reading through all this requirement for outreach, pitching, and DMing local business owners, I immediately thought about the quiet kids.
The introverts.
Yeah, exactly. The 19-year-old who breaks into a cold sweat if they have to order a pizza over the phone. But the program has this incredible psychological safety net built in for them.
You are referring to the 7-step customer discovery framework. It is specifically designed to bypass that exact anxiety.
It's brilliant. I mean, if you've ever had to cold call a client, you know that immediate pit in your stomach.
Oh, it's the worst.
This program bypasses that entirely. All of the initial outreach is text and DM based. They provide predefined templates for almost every scenario. So a shy student doesn't have to cold call a grumpy business owner or do any public speaking. Step 1 isn't even a hard pitch, it's literally just observation.
Right. The template might have the student simply say something like, "Hi, I love your bakery I visit every week, but I noticed you don't have your daily menu online."
It's so casual.
It completely lowers the stakes.
Yeah.
It changes the dynamic from a salesperson demanding money to just a helpful local noticing a gap.
And they just follow the script. They send the polite message, tag the lead in their CRM, and move on. Voice notes are introduced much later, only after a warm connection is already made, to slowly build vocal confidence.
Exactly.
They don't have to be a charismatic extrovert at all. They just have to follow the 7 steps.
And if we connect this back to the bigger picture, it fundamentally changes how we view the outcomes of the program. The projected realistic outcome for a consistent student is making 3 to 4 sales in those 45 days.
Okay, so what does that look like financially?
It means they earn around 12,000 to 15,000 rupees a month. But, as that initial disclaimer stated, the money is really just the proof of concept.
It's a nice bonus, but it's not the actual prize.
The actual prize is the acquisition of 10 core skills that are completely invisible on a traditional university syllabus. We are talking about client communication, active problem solving, time management, AI prompt engineering, handling rejection gracefully, and managing a project from initial scope to final delivery.
That's huge.
Imagine that student walking into a corporate job interview 2 years later. They aren't answering behavioral questions by talking about a college group project where half the team did nothing.
Oh man, the dreaded group project where one person makes the slides and everyone else just reads them off the screen.
Exactly. Instead of that, they're opening a laptop, pulling up a live URL of a real local business they helped, and explaining how they negotiated the pricing. They're explaining how they handled the client's revisions and how they used AI to meet a tight deadline. It makes them, as the program rightly claims, 10x stronger than any typical fresher competing for that exact same role.
It's an incredibly compelling narrative, but, putting on our critical lenses for a second, we have to look at the blunt reality. This all sounds like an absolute dream scenario on paper.
It does.
But surviving and actually scaling in the hyper-competitive, deeply skeptical Indian education market, that is a different beast entirely.
It absolutely is. And putting my consultant's hat on, I was really impressed by how transparent the source materials are about the brutal truths and the risks involved here.
Yeah.
Because the Indian consumer market, especially regarding education, is highly price-sensitive and deeply, deeply skeptical of shortcuts.
Oh, for sure.
When middle-class parents see an online program promising that their college-age child can launch a digital business in 7 days, their immediate default reaction is intense suspicion.
They're going to ask, is this a multi-level marketing scheme? Is this some crypto gimmick? And probably most importantly, is this going to distract them from their actual degree and ruin their GPA?
Precisely. Parents in this demographic want safety. They want clear career trajectories and absolutely zero waste of study time. They do not want high-pressure coding boot camps that actively compete with their child's university degree for time and energy.
Which is exactly why the expectation management we discussed earlier is so heavily emphasized.
Yes.
The sources explicitly list what the CWDTP does not do, almost as a shield against these criticisms. Like, it does not hand you ready-made clients. It is not a placement guarantee for a job. It is not magic.
No magic involved.
The formula is literally defined as structure plus action. If a student ghosts the program after 3 days because they got a single polite rejection on WhatsApp, they will fail.
The program demands extreme discipline. It requires a smartphone, a basic laptop, an internet connection, and the actual willingness to talk to human beings. If a student enrolls waiting to be passively spoon-fed information, like a university lecture, this system will literally chew them up and spit them out.
So what happens when life gets in the way? Say a student gets overwhelmed with college midterms, or they just fall behind that daily demo site quota. Do they just fail out and lose their entire investment?
Well, they have built in a very clever safety valve for that exact scenario. It's called the CWD Momentum Pass.
Okay, how does that work?
For an additional fee of 1,000 rupees, a student can buy a 30-day buffer. This extension gives them continued access to the 247 WhatsApp community support and the 90-minute weekly live webinars where they can get their specific doubts resolved and reset their mindset.
Charging for the extension rather than just, giving it away for free is an interesting choice.
It's actually a classic principle of adult learning psychology. If you give a struggling student a free, endless extension, they will procrastinate forever because there is absolutely no urgency.
Right. That makes sense.
By attaching a small, manageable fee, like 1,000 rupees, it activates the sunk cost fallacy in a positive way. The student feels financially invested in utilizing that extra 30 days. It's a way to hit pause without quitting entirely.
That's a really smart release valve, but even with that, the analysis notes that the biggest long-term threat to CWDTP isn't a lack of market size. I mean, 4.6 crore MSMEs is virtually an infinite sandbox at this scale.
Exactly.
The real existential threats are sloppy execution as they try to scale the mentorship, and of course, the inevitable wave of copycats.
And this raises a really important question about defensibility in the edtech space. Once a transition model like this proves profitable, competitors will inevitably try to clone the pricing, steal the DM templates, and mimic the marketing.
Right, they always do.
But the analysis correctly identifies the moat here.
Sure.
Copycats cannot easily replicate the rigorous student support system. They can't fake the community culture of those weekly live webinars.
Yeah.
And they certainly cannot replicate Avai Sonak's 40-year credibility. A transition program lives or dies entirely on student outcomes. If the students actually publish websites, face the market, and build confidence, the organic word of mouth will be unstoppable.
But if execution gets sloppy?
If execution gets sloppy and students feel abandoned, the market will punish them instantly.
So what does this all mean? When you step back from the AI prompts and the one-page websites and look at the whole picture, the genius of the CWDTP is that it doesn't try to fight the traditional Indian college system.
No, it embraces it.
It doesn't tell students to drop out and rebel. It runs parallel to their degree. It takes theoretical students, hands them modern AI tools, and gives them a safe, highly structured sandbox to become industry-fit professionals with real, verifiable portfolios.
It's a profound shift in how we think about credentialing. And it really leaves us with a rather provocative thought to consider.
Oh, let's hear it.
We are rapidly entering an era where AI and automation can easily replicate basic theoretical knowledge. The entry-level worker whose only asset is knowing the textbook, who only knows the aerodynamics of the bicycle but has never actually ridden it, is becoming obsolete.
Because the AI has already read all the textbooks and it remembers them perfectly.
Exactly. So if we project this trend forward, are we approaching a near future where practical, exposure-based transition programs like CWDTP become the primary credential that employers actually care about?
That is fascinating.
We might soon see a world where a candidate's portfolio of real client interactions, resilience, and AI-assisted problem-solving is what actually gets them the job. This would render the traditional 4-year university degree as the actual byproduct of a young person's education, rather than the main event.
Wow. The degree basically becomes the side hustle, and the real-world exposure becomes the major. That is a wild but honestly entirely plausible way to look at the future of work. I want you to keep questioning the systems around you, especially the ones that tell you a piece of paper is all you need to be ready for the real world. Think back to that empty desk on your first day of work. If models like this succeed, maybe the next generation won't have to feel quite so lost. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.